Welcome to Short Course, episode 124 for February 16th, 2024. I'm your host, Ben Barry. This is going to be a bit of a double-stuffed episode. I was actually planning to record with about half of this stuff last week, but work got busy and I ended up working late and just missed the window Thursday and Friday to record, so I figured I'd just wait until this week. So here we are. Like I said, this will be a full one, so I'll try and move quickly and just kind of get caught up on everything outstanding since 2 weeks ago when we talked about the January board meeting. So the unexpected brouhaha of the past 2 weeks was the revelation that USPSA had filed for the trademark on the term hit factor in the United States. And this was revealed through public records, which you can go and search on the website of the USPTO, Patent and Trademark Office. And you can see everything that the USPSA has had in the past, that has currently, any related trademarks that have since gone vacant or dormant. But it was posted by Practical Shooting Insights on Tuesday, February 6th, that USPSA had applied for this trademark. And as was discussed by myself and Frank Rizzi, we had no awareness that this was happening. And in fact, it was done on January 17th, which was a few days before the January board meeting. And as far as we know, there was no plan to discuss it at the board meeting. It certainly was not discussed. And so the fact that it had been done, we were not asked beforehand or notified afterward, kicked off a lot of consternation. There was a bunch of discussion internally within the board. And thankfully, I'm happy to report that we have the application for that trademark was withdrawn effective February 8th. So basically, as soon as we found out, it was canceled. And I think there is a legitimate purpose for USPSA to have some trademarks, things on our actual name, USPSA, United States Practical Shooting Association. But the trademark on something like hit factor, which is an aspect of our scoring, but it's not really part of our public marketing. It's not something we use to advertise our matches. It's not a distinctive part of our trade dress. Never really made much sense, and we're looking into it. There are still ongoing discussions that, like I said, the application has been canceled, but that doesn't mean that the whole discussion on the topic is over internally with the board. We will be continuing to talk about it. I believe it's on the agenda to discuss at the February board meeting as well. So it has not been forgotten. We are just discussing it further internally. So the other thing that has happened in the last 2 weeks is that Yemin, as the president, called a special meeting, which can be done by the president or 3 members of the board on 48 hours notice. In this case, this one was not a surprise, but all the procedure was followed. And the strictures of a special meeting are that you have to say what the single topic is, and you can only discuss that topic at the special meeting, and you can't do bylaws changes at a special meeting either. So in this case, the topic of the special meeting was just taking the vote to accept the interim appointment of Jim Boone as the interim Area 1 director and to set his start date. And the whole meeting was, including the vote to approve the agenda, begin live streaming, accept the nomination, set his start date, and then move to adjourn, took 6 or 7 minutes. So there were actually a number of people who tuned in for the live stream, and it was boring, which honestly, I would like to see a lot more boring board meetings, or, at least meetings where things proceed calmly and procedurally. So that has been done. Jim has started. I've gotten the chance to talk to him some, exchange some emails back and forth, and he seems like he's asking good questions, bringing up good solutions, and I think he'll really be an asset to the board. So I'm very much looking forward to having him join us, and I believe he is also running in the Area 1 special election. I don't know who else has filed a petition to run, but I wish Jim all the best in the election, and we'll see who runs against him. But so far, so good. Glad to have him. The other topic that has come up in the last few weeks that I thought is worth addressing is the topic of the minutes from the January board meeting. So typically what would happen is the board meetings would happen on a Monday. the minutes would be written up and sent out to the board, and any changes or corrections would have to be made in time for the minutes to be posted Friday, end of day Friday. And part of the reason that there was urgency with that is the bylaws, particularly 10.2, of which we discuss very often. 10.2 said that everything, all the discussions, even in open sessions of the board meeting, must be kept confidential until the minutes were posted. And so there was this kind of gag order on everybody on the board so that they couldn't talk about what was done until the minutes were posted. And part of conducting the live stream for the January meeting was waiving 10.2 in its entirety. And that opened the door to a different way of managing the minutes. And when this was brought up on the board email list after the meeting, I piped up, after nobody really said anything, I piped up and said, well, I think we should probably follow sort of standard practice for boards and minutes of this kind, which is the minutes are prepared in a draft state, sent out to the board members for review before the meeting. There'll typically be a vote to waive reading the minutes during the meeting if everybody's had a chance to review them, but there will be an opportunity for people to make motions to correct the minutes if they, in their view, they are not complete or not correct in some respect. And then the board will vote to approve the minutes. And this sort of creates you could almost think of it like a chain of evidence where the minutes of one meeting link to the next, and they represent the actual board agreeing that this is what happened. And that vote, a vote to amend the minutes doesn't necessarily have to pass. The vote to approve them doesn't necessarily have to be unanimous, but it does at least allow publicly registering disagreement. So, for example, there was a case last year sometime that through the grapevine we've heard about that didn't show up in the minutes, where there was, I believe it was the motion that Scott Arnberg made to remove Ted Murphy as president. Scott had drafted that motion. He'd written it up. He sent it to the board in text form, and he wanted it to be included in the minutes. The motion failed, or actually it was declared out of order. But the motion was made, and I believe there have been other motions in other scenarios where the text of the motion was not included, but just some sort of secondary description of the general gist of the motion, which should be avoided going forward, in my opinion. But in either case, because all of the discussions happening about the minutes where the draft was being sent out via email, and then any discussions or corrections had to be basically argued out, there was no vote taken. It was basically just arguing back and forth about what should or shouldn't be included. There was no transparency to the membership that this debate had even happened. And so by following this process of having the minutes be approved at the next meeting, at least if there are discrepancies or people have disagreements, those will be recorded as, I disagree with this, or, there was a vote to make amendment XYZ, vote failed. So I made that suggestion, obviously not in that windy of a digression, but I made that suggestion. Nobody on the board commented in any way, positive or negative. And a few days later, E-Men said, okay, we're going with that. And we'll have the draft available for the board to review 10 days before the next meeting. How does that sound? I replied and said, that sounds good. Nobody else said anything. And that was the end of it. And in retrospect, my thought was, well, the recordings are out there, so folks that want to know what happened can watch those. But that really didn't make sense. And I do think we should have some kind of draft minutes that at least record the votes that were taken, who voted which way and that sort of thing, even if they're, and the draft should be prominently marked as a draft and not final and that sort of thing. So people understand that they might change, but at least have that first draft of the high level, here's what was discussed, here are the votes that were taken, available at least on the same timeline as before, if not sooner, given that they don't a draft can be released earlier because it is not deemed final. So there is an agenda item at the February meeting to discuss this, which I know probably sounds dry and boring, but I do think it is important that we start at sort of the foundation level with board practices like this and start improving them. So that's what's going on. That is why the January board minutes have not been posted yet. It was not through any malicious plan. It's not there's nothing nefarious being done with trying to hide them. It's just, as a board, I propose that we review them and then approve them. Nobody mentioned anything about posting a draft, and there has been a lot of member interest in having at least something to refer back to if you don't want to go back and watch the recordings. So that is something that we will be improving going forward, I hope. And that's what's going on. Nothing nefarious. It's just sort of moving to more of a mature board model where the minutes are voted on before they're finalized. One other sort of administrative note, general update, is that planning and logistics have come along such that the dates for the Area 6 Championship have been announced. So we previously agreed that it would be at Belton Gun Club, but we had to wait for some logistical things to figure out the exact date. And the date that we have chosen will be August 23rd through 25th. So the 23rd is a Friday, the 24th is Saturday, and the 25th is Sunday. And the plan is the staff will shoot all day Thursday, which is the 22nd. And then there'll be an all day Friday competitor flight. And then, similar to previous years, there will be an option to shoot all day Saturday, all 12 stages Saturday, or a split day where you shoot a half day Saturday, either AM, PM, and then everybody who shot a half day on Saturday, they all shoot Sunday morning, and then the match will wrap up Sunday afternoon after lunch, which gives us time to do teardown and get all the staff on the road, and hopefully, especially the ones who are driving, get back in their beds, hopefully by a reasonable time Sunday night. So that is a schedule that I think has worked out well in the past. Again, people have a choice to sort of shoot all the way through in one day, or I think the split schedule probably will be the most in demand. Certainly, if you want to maximize your performance, I think that is the preferred schedule. But not everybody wants to take the extra time for an area match, and so I think having that hybrid, it's worked out well in the past, and so that's something where, looking at the tradition of the way the match has been run, I think that worked well, and so we're just copying it. And so that's the general schedule. Those are the dates. The staff application is open. So if you go to area6uspsa.org, that's area spelled out and then the number 6 and then USPSA spelled out.org/staff, you can see the various levels of staff. So we're looking for CROs, ROs, and then people who don't necessarily have a certification, as well as folks who can help on setup day. The staff package is all there. We are just doing a flat $200 cash stipend plus an additional $300 if you live more than 50 miles away from the range, and basically enough that you would need a hotel room. We are getting a room block, but we are not managing individual room registrations for people. So if you want to have a half occupancy hotel room and split one with another RO, we'll have ways for ROs to connect and find people looking to do that. But otherwise, we're not asking for receipts or anything. It's just, hey, here's the stipend, spend it on an Airbnb, camp in a campsite if you want. You're an adult, spend the money how you want. But the goal is, if you come to work for us, you shouldn't be within reason out of pocket for hotel or gas and travel like that. So that's part of the package. The rest is, like I said, on the website, area6uspsa.org/staff. We'll have a staff jersey. We'll have lunch on the range every day. We'll have a staff dinner, the usual stuff. But yeah, if you're interested in working the match, definitely check it out. We are, and I'll talk about this some more later, we are planning to run the match as staff reset. So we are looking for a lot of staff, but the goal is many hands make light work. And so by having a good crew on every stage, each individual person won't be heavily burdened by the work, but each stage will be able to turn their stage around fairly quickly and run the whole match efficiently. But we are looking to continue the tradition. I believe it's the last 2 years that the Area 6 match has been staff reset, and I think it's been great. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. If you want to get certified, we will be having an RO class. So the Area 6 is at Belton Gun Club. We'll be having an RO class there at Belton June 8th and 9th. And we'll be having a CRO class at Belton August 3rd and 4th. And for both of those, if you take the class and then work the match, you'll get your $50 class fee added onto your reimbursement. So you'll get reimbursed that fee as well. And additionally, the NC section is being hosted right here in Creedmoor, just north of Raleigh here in North Carolina. And for that, we'll be hosting an RO class in June, on June 13th and 14th as well. And it's same deal there. If you sign up for that class and then work the match, you'll get your RO class fee comped back to you. And just as an aside, I mean, there's always this question, this topic, how is Area 6 able to do these staff reset matches where everybody insists it wouldn't work elsewhere? I don't know, but I definitely think part of it is the fact that one of the things that we do is have an RO, at least an RO class every year, with a CRO class typically every other year, just because there's not as much demand for those associated with the North Carolina section, but obviously with an area match that pulls from a wider area. So just making sure that as people come into the sport and they want to get involved, they have an avenue to get certified if they're interested in doing that, and then be able to work the match. So that's something that is actually budgeted for in North Carolina. It's typically out of the budget for the section match, basically out of the proceeds remaining from each section match. About $2,000 is set aside to run the next year's RO class, because that's about what it ends up costing, even after the fees to the individual class attendee are kept as low as possible. And then obviously a number of those are refunded to the folks that end up working the match. But it basically ends up being, depending on the class and the number of people, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $2,000 that it pretty much costs to put it on an RO class. And that's just something that's currently absorbed by the North Carolina section, and that's a pattern that will be continuing with the area matches. Now, when you host a level 3 match, you get something of a discount on one of the classes, which helps reduce that cost, but it won't completely eliminate it. But to me, that's just part of running a staff reset match, is in the same way that your props cost some money, taking care of your staff costs some money, putting on classes out of the match budget so that you have certified people to come work the match, is it's just part of the cycle, year after year. It's just part of what you do. So we'll be doing that. If you want to get certified, those are your options. And obviously, if you're not in North Carolina or South Carolina, but you're somewhere else in Area 6, check the NROI website. They have a list of all the classes going on there as well. We will be opening up the registration for competitors sometime in March. That's deliberately vague. We're trying to get some things nailed down around some logistics and just a few more arrangements before we throw the doors wide open. But it is coming. Work is going on a daily basis to get there. So it's coming. But if you are interested in shooting it, you have the dates, so you can save that now. We are also just ramping up, sending out emails and getting sponsors on board. Now, the interesting thing about the way that we are choosing to run the area match this year is it will be based on an all cash sponsorship model. And as you guys have heard me talk about, you can go back and listen to episode 116, where I address this head on, of basically the issues with current sponsorship models, in particular around the fact that when you receive a whole bunch of product, then logistically you have to basically have someone to wrangle all that product and then someone to distribute it. Typically the people who receive a given prize, they're the only person who's aware that the sponsor sponsored the match with that prize, with the exception of things like nationals, where people walk the prize table and then everybody walking the prize table gets to see what's on it. But at a typical section or area match where prizes are distributed typically randomly at registration, there's pretty limited visibility, and so the sponsor doesn't necessarily actually get that much advertising value from the product that they send. So we are running this as a different sort of experiment, and the sponsorship model for this match will be entirely based on cash. No product, no gift certificates. The sponsorship levels are much lower than for a match of this size, considering that most sponsors will send product with a certain value, which is their retail value, not their cost of goods. So there's a discount there. But the goal is all of that money will go into making the match as best as possible. So taking care of the staff, having the accommodations on the range the best they can be. If everything works out and the match budget is in a good spot, I would like to be in a position to be able to do cash payouts for division winners, but I'm not going to promise that right now, just because this is the first time we're running the match at this scale. This is the first time we're running the match. We have no idea what the actual interest from sponsors will be. It may be that not all the stage sponsorships get bought out, because it may be that sponsors just culturally in the US are not willing to pay cash instead of product. And I say in the US because as I discussed in that episode previously, the standard in IPSC is cash sponsorship. There's typically not a prize table at IPSC matches. And I mean, I think part of that has to do with moving gun parts internationally and other legal issues with giving away things that are possibly regulated parts in some jurisdictions but not others. I'm sure that's probably a part of it, but it's just logistically it's a different system, and so we're going to try it. I have the opportunity as area director to use the area match as a little bit of a sandbox to try things out and see how it works. And so this will be an experiment. So all of that information, if you are interested in sponsoring, we have a number of different tiers, from the title sponsor, which has already been taken, to match sponsorships, stage sponsorships, and then we have lower levels. So we have a general sponsorship where you can sponsor some part of the range. So if you want to sponsor the porta potties because you think it would be funny, or you want to sponsor the safe areas, or you want to sponsor the golf cart shuttles, that kind of thing, we've got room. We don't necessarily need it. Any sponsorship money that we have will obviously go back into the match to take care of the staff, which is priority number one. Take care of the range, make sure they've got props and fault lines and everything refreshed, so all the wear and tear that we put on the range by bringing everybody through, we leave the range in a better situation than we came with. Like I was mentioning, having an SDEG to run RO, CRO classes and that sort of thing going forward, and then if we can have competitor payouts. So it'll be an experiment. That's what we're doing. But yeah, if you are a sponsor or someone who's interested in sponsoring, check out area6uspsa.org/sponsorship, and you can see the different packages and fill out the form and talk to us about it. So that is the big Area 6 update. And the one sort of small topic that I did want to address is related to staff reset. And this is a topic that I've addressed many times before on the podcast, but I know I definitely have some new listeners. So for folks who haven't gone back, I don't have any episodes called staff reset, but I think generally the ones where I'm talking about the past years, where I'll do the Carolina Classic wrap-up episodes, if you scroll back and look for those, it's always a topic as a part of those. But the high-level pitch of staff reset is that it makes the competitor experience more fair, in that you basically eliminate the risk of targets being pasted early. You basically eliminate the issues with movers being set wrong or inconsistently, and you just have overall a better quality match experience. The staff are the ones resetting the steel, so they'll feel if it starts to get heavy or wobbly, whereas competitors might, they might not know what to look for. So the staff can maintain the steel better, that sort of thing. The competitor experience is also just overall better. You have more time to either visualize for the next stage, or if you need to clean your mags, or sit down, drink some water. If you want to take notes on how your performance is doing, if you want to talk to the people on your squad, you have that option. I will say, in a sort of weird twist of fate, small world moment, I actually, like I mentioned, Area 6 in 2023 was run as a staff reset match, and I shot it as a regular competitor, and who was on my squad for the 2 days of shooting, but now interim Area 1, Jim Boone. And he and I, and as well as the rest of the squad, it was a great time. Everybody there was, there were a lot of interesting discussions, and honestly, they were discussions that we were able to have because it was a staff reset match. And so we were able to, as we were enjoying our weekend, I was able to talk to the guy who's the outgoing, at the time he was the North Florida section coordinator, a few other section coordinators in Area 6, Obviously, they knew that I was running for Area 6, and so we got to have some good conversations about that, but it was before the election had happened, so nobody knew if I would win or not. But also got to talk to Jim Boone, and so when his name came up as an interim appointee, I had some sense of who he was because we'd gotten to shoot that match together and actually get to spend some time communicating. And so overall, I think, especially if you're traveling a long distance for a big match, it makes the match experience better. As a competitor, you can spend more time focusing on the actual shooting as well as being there with the people that you're there with. I think as a staff member, it is very rewarding. And I say that as someone, again, I'm kind of warped because the first match I ever worked was the North Carolina section in 2013 before I was even an RO. And I was just helping to reset all day. I just shot with the staff on Friday and then just worked Saturday and Sunday and just soaked up the knowledge from the guys on my squad and all the competitors coming through. And I thought it was a great experience as a member of the staff. I've since worked the NC section every year that it's been at Sir Walter, and the last few years that it's been at Rowan since Stephanie took over as section coordinator in 2018. So, as a staff member, you have this real sense of being a part of a cohesive team. Everybody knows their job. As soon as the range is clear, everybody runs into action. You have an efficient process. And I say runs into action, but you're not having to really sprint around or do anything that heavily, that it involves much heavy exertion, because everybody has a well-defined role. Everybody just kind of goes to their place, resets, if there's a mover or some steel that needs to be painted or a group of targets that need to be pasted, everybody kind of has their assignment. And so everything gets reset very quickly. And basically as soon as everybody walks up range, the timer RO is standing there with the next shooter on deck and make ready, and you just keep on rolling. So everything, I find it, as a staff member, I find it very rewarding and satisfying to work. And honestly, as a staff member at North Carolina, I take pride in the fact that of us trying to make our match one of the best matches on the calendar. And so there's that sort of pride of being a part of something. And then just logistically for the match, you can cycle shooters through faster, which means you can actually get more shooters in the match and make more in match fees. Now, obviously you have to pay more in staff costs, but you can make more in match fees without having to actually charge every individual shooter more. I hear people talking about, would you rather have a $250 match that's staff reset or a $150 match that's non-staff reset? And in my experience, that comparison is not nearly that stark, because you get all these efficiencies from being able to run things staff reset. And they're also just sort of side benefits as well. So you can have situations like 2 years ago at the Carolina Classic, we had a couple guys that had actually flown in from Utah, Robert Wyatt and a buddy of his. They'd flown in because it just so happened that the Tennessee state match and the North Carolina state match were on the same weekend. So they were able to fly in. I guess they shot Tennessee, drove over to North Carolina, shot our match on Sunday, and then flew home. And there was some kind of issue where their flight had been rescheduled to be earlier. So they basically needed to get to the airport a few hours earlier than they were expecting. And it meant that if they stayed and shot with their normal squad until the end of the match, they would miss their flight. And we were able to say, okay, yeah, like this is an unusual circumstance. You guys, will just have you shoot through and be able to get on the road early. And so as other squads, as they needed to shoot through the rest of the bays, I think it was over lunch. I think the staff were able to just basically run these two guys through the last 3 or 4 stages, whatever they needed after lunch, and they were able to take off. And I remember Robert, who's the Utah section coordinator, he was saying, if this were not a staff reset match, I would feel like a huge jerk leaving my squad in the lurch, because they're, by shooting through, we leave them with 2 less guys to paste and reset, which makes everybody else's match worse because they have to spend that much more time. But because it was a staff reset match, we were able to accommodate that. So little things like that, those are all kind of the standard things that I've talked about over the years. But the thing that has sort of come to my mind in the past few weeks as we were talking, that I think is also another benefit of a staff reset match, is it gives people a first rung on the ladder to get involved in volunteering. And what I mean by that is, at a lot of matches where you are trying to say only take 2, maybe 3 people per stage, because you're trying to keep your your staff overhead as low as possible, just naturally you tend to take the most qualified people. You're going to take the CROs and the ROs who've worked the most matches. And this can, in some areas, create this effect where it's tough as an RO looking to get into the match, unless you sign up really early or you know the match director or something. It can be an issue. And if you're not certified, well, most matches just don't really have any use for you. There's no way you can work until you've taken an RO class. And one of the things about being a staff reset match is you have that scenario like I was in 2013, where I was just getting into the sport. I was gung-ho about it. I wanted to get involved. And so I just signed up, and I didn't have to be certified, but they had a place to put me. I got to shoot the match for free. I obviously lived close enough. The match was at Sir Walter, so I was able to sleep in my own bed. I got whatever the staff stipend was after the match. And I couldn't be happier with how it went. And that actually gave me the bug to go and, get certified, start learning to run the timer at local matches and all that. And, there are a number of people that we've had come out to the North Carolina match in the past where they're interested in volunteering. It might be something where, from an economic standpoint, it makes it viable to go from paying the match fee and having to, pay for, say, a hotel out of pocket to having your hotel covered and getting to shoot the match for free. That actually flips things for people. But it in a staff reset match, you have more room for the sort of broad spectrum of people interested in volunteering. And so it's not something that I discussed on the podcast, but as Steph and I were talking about Area 6 and North Carolina and just everything, we found ourselves kind of discussing the fact that one of the other benefits that is good for the whole ecosystem of USPSA is this attribute of staff reset matches being a place where people who aren't even certified can start to get experience, can start to learn from people who are certified, from people who are experienced. It certainly would not be a bad plan if you wanted to come, say, work the North Carolina section match as just a staff member, just spending a couple of days with experienced ROs and CROs on your squad, getting some sort of context for the things that happen at a major match, so that when you go to take that RO class and that CRO class, you have the information presented sort of falls into an environment where you can appreciate it more. I mean, you can imagine if you'd never shot a match and you took the RO class, all these terms about pepper poppers and fault lines and creeping and all, all these terms of art wouldn't necessarily make sense without the context. And I think by the same token, if you, I mean, heck, even if you're not sure if you want to commit the weekend, because it is a Saturday, Sunday thing, even just to get the level 1 RO class. If you're not sure if you want to commit that, come work a match, either Area 6, NC section, any other staff reset match. I believe the Georgia section matches will be staff reset this year. I know South Carolina will be, although that's in just over a month now. So I think they're probably buttoned up on staff, but no promises there. But either way, come work a match. You don't necessarily have to be certified, and by running things this way, there is room in the sport for people who want to volunteer at that level. So I thought that was a sort of facet of the topic that we hadn't discussed before. So I just wanted to bring it up in the context of Area 6 in North Carolina, once again, being staff reset matches. And again, I think this is a model that is scalable. I don't think that Area 6 is some magic land where it's the only place where things can work. I think we just have to look at what are the things that we're doing and how do we replicate that model and learn the lessons elsewhere. But at least for now, we're going to keep it going. North Carolina is going to be staff reset for the umpteenth year running. Area 6 will be the 3rd year running. And I hope you're enticed either to come and work for us or to, at the very least, come sign up and shoot the match, because we really do want to make them the best matches we possibly can. And I think running them as staff reset matches is without question a part of that. So that wraps up this episode of Short Course. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is ben@berryshooting.com. Talk to you next time.